Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of the Anarchist Guide to the Galaxy, or Universe. I'm sorry, I think we all do that, don't we? We have special guest tonight, Ian Dawson from United Launch Alliance, and we're going to be talking about careers in the spaceflight industry. But first, Rochelle has something that she would like to discuss with everyone. Rochelle? Rochelle? Nope. Rochelle? I think, I don't know that she hears us.
No.
Okay. So what we'll do is, let me go ahead and introduce our panel tonight. We have Alec, who has been tweeting from the official Anarchist Guide to the Universe Twitter account. We have Carolina. We have Jason. We have Ian. And we have Jerome. And we have Rochelle and myself. So Ian, Rochelle, are you ready to say what you wanted to say before we move on?
I think she's having an issue with YouTube.
Okay, we'll come back to that in a moment. Did you use the other browser? Two different browsers.
I did.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Still messed up.
Okay. All right. Maybe we'll just let that go and we'll revisit that as we. So don't worry about that, Rochelle. And go ahead and if you want to cover the topic.
Okay. I do want to take a moment to recognize the senseless tragedies that happened in Dallas, Baton Rouge, and Nice. Unfortunately, this is starting to become a weekly occurrence, and it's making a lot of us very, very sad. So I just wanted to take a moment and say that we are thinking about Dallas, Baton Rouge, and Nice, and yeah, I think everybody's sentiments are the same when it comes to this. It needs to stop. So that's what I wanted to say.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, it does seem like every day you turn on the news and there's more bad information, more bad events that have occurred, and people feel like they're kind of lost and don't know what to do. So it is good to remember to keep an eye out for things like that. And if there's any way you can help in your local community or those affected, by all means do so. All right, so Ian, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and thank you to United Launch Alliance. I believe we have the official account taking a look on Twitter. So anyone, if you want to send us questions, please use the AstroAnarchy hashtag, or you can tag ULA Launch, that's at ULA Launch, on Twitter for your questions about working in the spaceflight industry, or you can take a look and ask questions in the YouTube chat room. So Ian is with us. He is a propulsion engineer from United Launch Alliance. Ian, will you give us a little bit of background about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here, Kurt. I am a rocket engine engineer. So my job is basically to make sure that the fire that comes out of the back end of the rocket is done so in a controlled and manageable manner. I specifically work with the RL-10 engine. Have a little bit of experience with RD-180 and a couple of solid rocket boosters. Day job is actually working with the commercial crew program on the human certification of those engine systems. And then I do a lot of other side jobs, but yeah, that's my career so far.
So how did you get involved with, or how did you get pulled into talking to us? That's kind of that's interesting. Because this I would think this is outside of your normal daily job duties.
Yes, yeah. I'm not a PR person. I'm an engineer. I'm an introvert. I don't like people generally. No, not exactly true. You know, I think recently. I realized that being able to talk to people, you know, through the Twitterverse, as an example, about my passion for space exploration, for launch vehicles, for the science that's going on out there, it's really exciting for me. It amps me up. And so I joined Twitter, you know, gosh, 6 or 7 months ago now. I don't know how I got hooked up with you guys. I think I just saw a random tweet and it's like, well, those guys are pretty crazy. Let's see what they do. And so I guess I just I gravitated towards your team because all of you guys have this sort of passion for astronomy, for space, for launch vehicles, and so I thought this would be a really cool opportunity to kind of share my passion with you guys, and hopefully share it with your audience, and maybe get a few more people thinking about how they can get involved in space.
And it's perfect. We've had some pretty spirited discussions online. I think some humorous ones, some perhaps not so humorous ones, but all in all educating. And so, if any of our audience is not on Twitter by chance, which I think we gather a lot of our viewership from there, we do really suggest that you check us out there. There's a lot of discussion that goes on, not just with the official channel account, but also amongst all of the principals involved with the show, and we all have our areas of expertise and interest, and so if you're all interested in the topics we're discussing, which I hope you are since you're here, give us a look there, and especially Ian with his Pointy End Up account, and of course all of the spaceflight industries as well. So Ian, how did you get to where you are? So obviously it's probably not a straight journey, but when you started out in high school, did you think you would end up as a rocket engineer?
No. I knew that I wanted to be involved in the space industry. I knew that much. As a kid, I think the genesis of it started with my aunt, actually. She was working for Rockwell or North American, one of those older aerospace companies, while they were building Atlantis. And she was converting computer punch cards into digital, computer programming code to build Atlantis, right? So that was her job. But she would give me posters, T-shirts, things like that when I was really, really young. And I think that's just what ultimately got me excited about space. Like, wow, this thing flies in space. These people fly in space. And then I watched. The next major memory that I can remember is the Hubble repair mission. I guess it would be the first one. Again, being a kid, and I have this image in my mind of this astronaut with what looked to me like a hammer just banging on the Hubble Space Telescope, I know that's not exactly what he was doing, but that's what it looked like. So as a kid, I'm thinking, wow, in space you can, beat on things. I beat on my VCR at home. This is cool. I could do this, Obviously, as I matured a little bit, went through high school, went through college, I decided that I wanted to be an engineer. So I went down the path of mechanical and aerospace engineering. The United Launch Alliance gig kind of happened sort of unexpectedly. It was actually, I got recruited by them. I had no idea what ULA was when I got the call from them from a headhunter's resume website. Interviewed, got hired, been there ever since.
Oh, and you've been there how long now?
Gosh, almost 9 years.
Okay, wow. So you've seen a lot of different things come up through the ranks, I guess, over those 9 years. What would you suggest to, if we had a viewer either watching now or our recorded show who's currently in high school and trying to map out their path through life, and they were interested in working in the spaceflight industry, which I guess one of the things we need to make sure our viewers know that there's far more to the spaceflight industry than just being an engineer. But Ian, you being an engineer, you'll probably have the most intimate knowledge of that path. So if they were looking to work in engineering in the spaceflight industry, what would you tell them to focus on? What would you tell them to do extracurricular-wise? What advice would you give to students today?
Sure. The biggest thing is don't be rigid in what you want to do, especially in high school and even in early college. And what I mean by that is, don't go into college thinking, I am going to be a propulsion engineer. I'm going to work on rocket engines. That's it. That's my career. It's a great goal, but make sure that you're willing to look for other jobs, other sort of disciplines in the space industry field. As an example, I started out actually as a quality engineer at ULA. I didn't even know what a quality engineer did before I started that job, but I learned a lot. I got a kind of a different perspective on engineering in the launch vehicle industry. Since then, I've done systems engineering. I've done a stint in, mine just went blank, structures. There we go. I worked payload accommodations. I worked a couple payload adapters for a Delta IV and a Delta II mission. And I've worked a bunch of just odd jobs since then. So by me not being rigid, by saying I need to work on rocket engines, and sort of allowing myself to spend a few months, a few years in different areas, I was able to find things that I liked, things that I didn't like, and sort of hone in on my trajectory. Yeah, so to sum it up, if you're in school, don't be rigid. If you like space, pursue it. That's a great goal. Go into engineering, go into science, go into whatever you want to do, whatever you like, and accept what comes your way.
Great. Thanks for the information. Now, Carolina, I believe, has a question.
Yeah, my question was just about schooling. Like, were you someone that did internships while you were going to college? Did you participate in any summer programs, like mechanical engineering seminars, anything like that?
Sure. Yeah. In college, I participated in what was the Society for Automotive Engineers. We had an SAE club. Worked on a little Formula racer, like a glorified go-kart project. Did that for a year or two, I think. Also participated in a couple volunteer groups that was through the University of Arizona. So we worked with some local Tucson area high schools and on some of their STEM programs. The internship I did, actually, I was an electrical engineer for 3 months at Honeywell. So that was kind of my extracurricular stuff.
So do you think that your extracurriculars, along with your educational background, helped you kind of be a standout to ULA?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's cliche. Everybody says you have to be do extracurricular, to be a well-rounded individual. I can't say that the person who interviewed me actually said, oh yeah, well, he was an SAE, so definitely hire him. But I can say that just by showing that you have additional problem-solving sort of experience outside of a textbook is incredibly valuable to you in not only in spaceflight industry, but in any industry, I think, but especially in engineering.
Totally. Thank you so much.
So what advice would you give to someone who said, math and science aren't really my thing, but I'm really passionate about spaceflight, and I want to work for someone like United Launch Alliance, but I'm really not good with math. There obviously are far more jobs in the industry than just engineers. So what other things would perhaps appeal to those sorts of people?
Yeah, just at United Launch Alliance alone, we have rocket scientists, rocket engineers, rocket accountants, rocket PR people. We have locomotive engineers, actually, that move the Atlas V vehicle from the vertical integration facility out to the pad at Slick 41. So the big thing is, if you are not mathematically oriented, or you're not, you just don't care for the black arts of engineering sciences, that's okay. Do what you like to do. Go through business school, or go through get your CPA, or whatever that path looks like for you. And if you still want to join the space industry, these companies are looking for folks like you. I can't say numbers or statistics, but I can say that there's no way that I can do my job without having some really good, financial folks, business managers, just supply chain administrators. There's no fire without those folks. So I guess it just kind of goes back to my first answer about people in school. If you have a passion, do whatever you like. Keep the space industry as a goal, but don't be rigid. Let yourself kind of float around and find the right trajectory to get yourself into this industry.
So, is there ever a morning that you wake up and you don't feel like, my gosh, I work in one of the coolest industries that a person can work in? I mean, is there ever a time where it doesn't seem cool to you?
Do you mean does it feel like a job sometimes?
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's probably a fair way of putting it. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it is a job, but at the end of the day, actually, I'll answer it this way. When Curiosity landed on Mars, I actually woke up that morning in a tent at about 11,000 feet in the mountains. And I just remember hiking up to a hill to watch the sunrise and the moon set. Got back down to Denver, to my home, and flipped on the television, and I watched the Mars Curiosity landing live, or watched the control room live. Knowing that I had a small part, really, really small part in that landing, and knowing that I started my day the way that I did, like just doing something that another thing that I'm passionate about is mountain climbing and being outdoors. I had chills. I still get chills. Like that was the best day that I've ever had since I've started this career. I've had a lot of other good days, career-wise. Looking at Juno going into orbit around Jupiter. I had a small part in that one. OA6, I was on console when we launched the Cygnus cargo module. That's just so cool to me. So while Monday through Thursday it'll be, I call it type 2 fun, meaning where type 1 fun, it means I'm having a good time in the moment, I'm smiling. Type 2 fun is I'm banging my head against the desk, shuffling paperwork and really hating it, but then I go home and I think that was really cool. We launched a rocket today, we put a GPS satellite in orbit today, or whatever. Does that answer your question, I guess?
Yes, it does. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think Rochelle has a question from Twitter.
I do. It's from Ryan Bowl, and he's been a long-time follower and watcher of the show. He wants to know what types of degrees / people does ULA hire?
Sure, all manner. Obviously I'm not an HR person, so I can't tell you line by line which ones we hire, but we're looking for, this probably extends to the rest of the spaceflight industry. We're looking for computer programmers, electrical engineers. We're looking for aerospace engineers, thermal analysts. Like I mentioned before, accountants and business managers to handle the sort of the operation side. It really runs a gamut. I think underwater basket weaving is probably the only degree that won't get you very far in the spaceflight industry. Zero-G basket weaving, maybe that's a different thing.
Well, yeah,
That's the key, though, microgravity.
So we've been approaching a lot of these questions from the standpoint of what the student needs to look for, what they need to do. But let's flip that around a minute. So think about some of the teachers that you had when you were in high school and some of the professors you had when you were in college. Was there ever a time where you felt like that an engineering discipline was not something you were suited for, but then you had the encouragement? What sort of things can the teachers and professors do to help those students that may have a wavering interest or may have become disenchanted because of a bad grade or something that they've heard? what would you recommend to the teachers? How to keep students interested?
Yeah, sure. Kind of peg on my own experience going through school. I've of course had teachers that were very inspirational for me. Um, the biggest thing that I could recommend is um, trying to recognize that there's that spark. There's something there. This child has some interest or desire. Either because he or she has a NASA patch on their backpack or something like that. And try to do something that gets them involved. Most schools, I think, have model rocketry clubs or something like that. Try to talk with them and say, hey, I see you got a NASA patch on your backpack. Have you ever done the model rocketry thing? I think that was, that's a very big key. To hit on your second point of getting a bad grade. I've gotten a bad grade. In fact, I don't like to publicly acknowledge it, but I did fail one of my calculus courses in college. I retook it in summer. I blame it on the professor, but I retook it in summer and I got a B. Failure is a part of the game, especially in this industry. While we don't like failure, we've got to learn how to acknowledge it, accept it, figure out how we can improve and move on. So when you're a teacher and you're looking at a child who is just completely downtrodden by a bad grade, just remind them that some of the smartest people, the most innovative people, in this world have failed at one point or another. And so failing a spelling test or a math test or whatever it happened to be, it's not a bad thing. Help them understand that, recognize that, accept that, and then try to turn it into something better. Try to turn it into a passion to get better, to improve, if that means studying more or going after school hours and getting tutoring, whatever that looks like. I think that's the two things that I could tell teachers, anyways, off the top of my head.
Great, thanks.
I
Rochelle, you have a question?
Yeah. No, I don't have a question, but I just want to talk about the math aspect of feeling like a failure. I am terrible at math. I decided to take this adventure to become an astronomer when I was 38. And I have failed 2 math classes, but it's just making me want to try harder in order to get to that point to become an astronomer. I want to work for NASA or anywhere that I could be an astronomer and discover new planets, dwarf planets, anything new that's in the sky. But the whole point is don't give up. Don't think just because you got one bad grade or you're doing bad at something, just work harder to do it. Get a tutor, get people to help you, and just don't give up on your dream. Keep that passion lit, keep that fire lit, and just keep pushing forward. And like I said, don't give up. I am almost 40 years old. Yeah, I'm 40 years old now. Yuck. And I'm not giving up. I will keep going until I'm in the ground, and I will make sure that I get my degree and work for NASA. Yeah, so that's what I want to say.
Thanks. So this kind of speaks to me a bit. So this next question. So when I was in high school, I was a very high-achieving student. The only time I didn't get the top grade that I wanted was if there was a reason for me not to. I mean, I intentionally sacked my grades a little bit, so I wasn't valedictorian because I didn't want to get up in front of people and talk. So, I was always a high-achieving student. I get to college, and I was in no way prepared from a study standpoint. I was used to being the top academic dog. So how do you, from a personality standpoint, what sort of advice, because I'm assuming that you were probably a high-achieving student in high school as well. At least I think so. Right. Okay.
I did okay.
So, I mean, how would you tell a high school student to prepare themselves not only for college, but for a maybe not high stress, but I guess high attention to detail field such as engineering? How do they go about preparing for that?
Wow, that one's a hard one. I don't think I've still figured that one out. um, yeah, so I guess I'll kind of answer it again with a personal anecdote. First year of mechanical engineering school at University of Arizona, we had to take Engineering 101, and it's basically sort of a colloquia kind of class. So it was once a week for an hour and a half or something, and they would just talk about what engineering is. The very, very first lecture that I sat in on, the professor basically said, look to your left, you look to your right. Those people are not going to graduate with you in engineering. So 2/3 are basically going to drop out in the 4-year course of college. I kind of laughed it off, like, no, these guys, I know these guys, they're good. Sure enough, both those guys didn't do engineering. They got out of science and got out of science completely, got out of the mathematics completely. So obviously that was retrospective. I didn't know that at the time. As I got more into college, I think what I learned is that you really have to approach college differently than anything that you've ever done in your life. You've got to approach it, you've got to be passionate about what you're doing, and you've got to be sort of strategic about that passion. And what I mean by that is it's going to suck for a very long time. You're going to have a lot of homework, you're going to be overwhelmed, you're going to have midterms and tests and professors that are just going to drive you up the wall. But if you can focus on that one thing, that one final goal that you have in mind, all of that becomes meaningless. And you do like Rochelle just talked about, you drive to do whatever you need to do to pass that class, to complete that homework assignment, to pass the midterm exam. I think that's different from high school. High school, for the most part, we could just float through. I'm not trying to sound disrespectful or anything, but in a sense, high school is not meant to prepare you for the real world. College is. That's my take on it, anyways. I guess in summary, to not just sort of drone on here, college is about problem solving, right? You're gonna, especially in engineering, that's all you're gonna do is you're gonna problem solve. You're gonna be given a problem and you have to solve it. Well, the biggest problem that you're gonna have to solve is how you, as the individual, as a college student, gets through college, and that's gonna look different for everybody. But if you can master that, and it might take you 4 years to do it, but if you can master that, then you've got it made. You'll make a smooth transition into the post-college world, the career, whatnot.
Great, thanks. Jerome, did you have something you wanted to add?
I did, because from my perspective, I think I shared a similar background with you, Kurt. And learning about college is a very abrupt sort of baptism by fire. And what I found was helpful for myself was finding a mentor or someone that's working in the field that you aspire to work into, and let them offer their insight and experience. I mean, not unlike what we're doing now with Ian, but having that personal mentor to sort of walk you through those steps can really, really help, because it is a strange environment to jump into when you get to college. And I just know that helped me dramatically. And as an example, I also struggled at first with calculus, and of course I ended up working at a company that worked in 3D graphics, and of course all of a sudden computers and calculus made a whole lot of sense. And for that 17, 18-year-old that's going into college, not really being able to draw that connection. That's exactly what somebody with experience, a mentor, could provide, is that kind of insight. So I just wanted to offer that to maybe the parents out there who are struggling to try to figure out how to motivate their son or daughter, and maybe trying to make that connection for them to better ensure that they can make that transition into college, and also to connect the dots so that they understand, why it is that you're studying what you're studying. It can just make all the difference in the world, and I just wanted to offer that up. I know as an adult I like to go back and talk to junior colleges or other students and tell them my experience as well, so that they can better understand what it is that they're doing, and why it applies or is applicable to whatever field that they're looking at getting into. So I just wanted to offer that up.
Thanks. Alec, you said you had something you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, something that I had, that when I was down at Kennedy Space Center back in June, I saw a couple, we've been talking about a little kind of more traditional careers in the space industry, and I saw some, like an ambulance with the Kennedy Space Center Fire Department, and there's a lot of stuff kind of peripheral to spaceflight that you can do out there. Paramedics and firefighters that have to work to support the Space Center, and if there's an accident on the launch pad or something like that, it's even beyond engineering or anything that would require a 4-year degree. There's a lot you can do to add to that, to the field. So just.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, you're right. I've seen their fire department out there and all of their equipment. Yeah, you're right. Ian, sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, no, not at all. I was just going to say, we have car mechanics. We have a fleet of vehicles out at the launch sites that we need to maintain. So we have car mechanics that are necessary to keep our operation running smoothly. So Alec's point is really good. And again, it just ties into that: do what you're passionate about, do what you like, and keep space as your goal, and figure out how to get there with what your talents are.
So what would you say in your 9 years or so with ULA, the type of job that you went, I had no idea we had somebody like that on staff. What are some of those jobs that you may have seen that most people wouldn't? I mean, we've already mentioned firefighters and such, but what are some interesting ones that people would not normally associate?
Yeah. I think I think what I didn't realize is all the infrastructure support that's required. It's funny to say that, because you look at a launch and you see the towers and you see all the vehicle assembly buildings and things like that. You see all of this infrastructure, and in the back of your head you're like, well, yeah, somebody's got to work on that. But actually knowing that is a big chunk of our operation is just making sure that this is going to sound a little bit extreme, but the pad doesn't crumble underneath our next launch. We have people that, masons and or masonries, I should say, and steel workers and welders and essentially construction tradespeople. That was probably the most shocking, because I always assumed, well, we probably just contract with somebody, and a lot of that certainly is, but a lot of it is we need somebody on site immediately, and the only way we can do that is by having a badged employee, a badged electrician or what have you. I think that was probably the most surprising to me.
I've got a question, Ian, and this is coming from. I went to college and I've got an art degree, and I'm also passionate about space. I'm what's now called a creative. We didn't use that term back then, but now we do. And is there something for people like me, inside the industry, not necessarily contract work or whatever, but designers, graphic designers, photographers, people, copywriters, people that kind of have more of a soft skill to bring to something that they're passionate about, like space. Like it's a funny line, because I feel like I have a foot in both worlds as far as what I'm thinking here, what I'm feeling here. So for kids in school and who are going through high school or even earlier planning their future, is there a spot for them who want to be involved in it too?
Oh yeah, oh absolutely. As engineers, we have very little creative skills, so it takes a good team of graphic designers, of website designers, of presentation makers, the folks that actually create the videos and the PowerPoint charts that are sent out. It takes a really fantastic team to convert the engineering speak that we're spitting out, people like me are spitting out, into something that's palpable to the rest of the world, and make us look good, while doing it. So yes, so absolutely, creative individuals. In fact, that kind of ties into one of the other reasons why I wanted to get involved in sort of the Twitterverse and be a little bit more public about my passion. There are some fantastic concepts out there from not only from United Launch Alliance, but from other companies, SpaceX, Blue Origin, so on and so forth. These concepts are going, some of them are going to happen, right? But you can't sell a concept on a technical paper. You've got to make it flashy. You've got to make it look good. You've got to make it palpable, to the rest of the world. And it's those concept videos, those concept presentations, those images, those are what excite people, children especially. So I think now more than ever, as we're starting to see the space industry grow and evolve into something that we don't even know what's going to look like 10 years from now, it's more important that we have creative individuals that are able to take those mind-blowing concepts and put them into some exciting picture that will hang on some kid's wall. I think that's pretty cool.
That's great to hear, because I feel like I'm like somewhere in the middle, where like I really like science and math, and I really like art. I have a ceramics background, not really, two-dimensional like painting and drawing, but more three-dimensional, and that's how I feel like I like engineering. I'm a really three-dimensional person, hands-on, kinesthetic learner. So that's good to hear.
Yeah.
So Ian, how often do the people in the arts field, so the graphics designers at ULA, how often do they work closely with the engineers to make sure that the graphics that they're putting out are correct enough without giving away too much information? And do they work in their own little world, or is there a lot of interaction between the two of you?
I've only interacted with our group a handful of times, so my perspective is a little bit limited, but I do know that, or I should say, I can say that they are well aware of the sensitivities of what they are creating, and as a result, there is some back and forth between the engineers and them, as far as making sure that as something as simple as a launch sticker like the MUOS 5 one that you just showed, making sure that something like that conveys enough, accurate information, engineering accurate information, but not so much that we're giving away trade secrets. Yeah, so there's a lot of interaction, and they're fantastic people to work with.
And it's constantly evolving too, isn't it? I mean, you guys in particular, but I think industry-wide, basically for every broadcast launch or any press reports that are put out, there seems to be a little bit more information, a little bit more, I don't want to call it flash because that would seem to imply that it's not informational, but it is. I think with the MUOS 5 launch, ULA just did your first ever YouTube broadcast, is that correct?
That's right.
So it's not as if someone will look at what ULA is doing today and try to fit in with what's going on today, but they may actually be instrumental in crafting where ULA or whatever entity they work for, where they're going in the future, correct?
That's absolutely right. It's a I like actually. I'm sorry, I'm reading the chat thing, and Jerome just mentioned not flash but polish. That's exactly what it is. Um, it's honing in on the exciting aspects of what we're doing here, and the creative folks are going to be the ones that are going to kind of lead that. They're going to be able to create this shiny object that now the engineers are going to say, well, shoot, we got to figure out how to do that. We got to figure out how to make it that polished. That wasn't on my engineering drawing.
So how often does that happen, where the creativity folks are pushing the engineering folks?
I actually don't know. I've not seen it happen personally. But,
fair enough.
But you know, as an engineer, we'll look at something, you know, concept art or whatever, and we'll think, gosh, that's really cool. 90% of this it's Star Trek. You can't do it now. But we'll still be thinking about it, and we'll still be inspired about it, and might draw us into different directions in an everyday problem that we're currently in the midst of solving. You know.
So something that has come to mind watching the Twitter feed here. I know we have at least I think we have at least a couple of our viewers, if not more, that are foreign nationals. So if a foreign national was interested in working for United Launch Alliance or in the spaceflight industry, how likely is that?
You know, I actually don't know. That's kind of outside of my area of expertise, to be honest.
Okay, fair enough. Can you? So I guess back in 2011, when the shuttle stopped flying, the conventional wisdom amongst most people was NASA is shut down, and because NASA to people is spaceflight, that everybody there's no space program in America at all.
Mm-hmm.
So how would one go about educating people, and how often have you been out in public and heard people say something like that you've been able to educate them about?
Oh yeah. Actually, when let's see, it was the January, the GPS launch that we did in January. I was working that one. I happened to have a weekend off. Went over to Kennedy Space Center, did the little bus tour around the NASA facilities there. And as part of the bus tour, the bus driver stopped at a point where you could see into Slick 41, and you could see the Atlas V vehicle within the vertical integration facility. And I remember the bus driver saying, or not saying, oh, by the way, that's a ULA Atlas V. I think he just said that's an Atlas V launch. And a lot of people on the bus said, oh, I didn't know NASA did that. Wow, that's really cool. And I think by the back of my head, I thought, well, I got to, just jump up, stop the bus, and say, no, NASA didn't do that. But what I did is, I turned around and I said, actually, it's a United Launch Alliance Atlas V. It's a GPS mission. And I started engaging with people on the bus, and eventually the driver caught wind, and he said something to the effect of, yeah, that's United Launch Alliance Pat or what have you. So I find that I do that quite often, actually. When people hear about like EFT-1, the Orion launch that we did back a couple December 14 was it already? I was actually on a plane when it launched, which was unfortunate. But when we landed, I remember walking through the airport and people were talking about it. They were saying, wow, that was really cool. We landed or splashed down Orion. Everything looked good. The launch was beautiful. And some of them would say, that it was a NASA launch and things like that. And of course it was a NASA mission, but it was a ULA launch. And every once in a while, when it's socially acceptable to do so, I'll remind them that it was the United Launch Alliance. And hey, by the way, we do a lot of other cool stuff like launch GPS satellites and Juno and Mars Curiosity and things like that. I think they're really just shocked that there is this company out there that's doing all these missions. And of course, not to belittle the other launch providers in the industry, SpaceX and Orbital ATK. I think it's just going to be a slow evolution to remind people that NASA is but one element, one very big, very public, very exciting element of this industry. But it's the companies like ULA that are kind of the railroads. You know, we're kind of in the background, making things happen, making the transportation accessible. So.
So you mentioned the other spaceflight entities. So I'm sure there's a lot of competitive nature between the different ones. You guys are going after a lot of the same business, but let's take it from, I guess, your standpoint. When you see somebody else, some other entity do something, does that push you to do better at what you're doing? Does that give you ideas, or what is it like to see a different company do something cool?
Oh, like landing a booster on a concrete pad at Cape Canaveral?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. It's funny, actually. I usually, myself and a few other engineers that I work with will get into one of our huddle rooms there, assuming it's not occupied with real work, and go take 10 or 15 minutes and watch a SpaceX or an orbital ATK launch. We'll watch these other launches. Mostly it's engineering curiosity. You know, we will kind of want to learn more about the vehicle, sort of just sort of satisfy our own engineering needs. But there's absolutely that element of, these folks are doing something that is capturing people's imagination, and whether or not it turns out to be a game changer in the industry, time will tell. But as far as I'm concerned, it drives me to make sure that I do what I need to do to make sure that we're 100% mission success. And that's all I can do. That's the best way that I personally can compete with those other entities. Sure, I draw some sort of inspiration from that, but it's mostly just I don't want to be left behind. So the best way to do that is just rock it out, 110%. Let's do this. Let's do it every launch 100% success.
Right. No. Great. Alec, I think you had something you wanted to ask.
Yes. When I was down at Cape Canaveral, I saw the buildings, the OPFs that Boeing has taken over. And I know that ULA would be launching some, CST-100 and delivering humans into space. Has that changed anything significantly over at ULA, now entering human spaceflight, I believe, for the first time?
Yeah, absolutely. Human spaceflight is a big deal for us. It's part of our heritage. We launched John Glenn on an Atlas Mercury vehicle, so it's kind of cool that Atlas V is sort of picking up the tradition. Excuse me. We have a entire organization that's devoted to our human spaceflight effort, and we focus on those little things that affect things like crew safety and launch on time and things like that. We have this knowledge, this respect that what we are doing is dramatic. It's I'll admit it. Sometimes it's kind of scary. Knowing that I'm signing off on documents, I'm making presentations, I'm making engineering decisions that will potentially affect someone's life. It's humbling. It really is. So I guess the short answer is it has affected our culture in the sense that you know, it's not just billion-dollar payloads that we're launching for national security space. It's not just NASA missions that we're launching. It's people. It's people with family. It's people with incredible talents. And so we have to be mindful of that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I imagine it's. I'm excited to see CST-100 fly. Certainly.
Yeah, me too.
That kind of leads me into another question. So you were talking about how it's rather humbling to be signing off on documents and making presentations that could be affecting human lives. So how does a student prepare? How do you prepare for that? How do you get into the mindset of doing things that you know could be directly impacting people like that? I mean, is that something you learn? Is that something you're born with? How do you prepare yourself for that?
I have no idea. I'll let you know when I figure that one out.
Very good. Rochelle, you had a question from Twitter?
Yes. Ryan Vole wants to know, what's your average workday like in your position at ULA?
Not as glamorous as the title of rocket scientist might foretell. You know, day to day it varies. You know, some days it's sitting in front of the computer. It's doing design reviews. It's doing teleconferences with our customers. You know, answering technical questions for them. Sometimes it's really cool, like going out to one of our suppliers. You know, like AeroJet Rocketdyne, and working with them on a big project. Yeah, so I guess it kind of varies, but yeah, it's to be honest, it's like any other job. I think you check your email, you do your PowerPoint presentations, you talk with your manager, you kind of begrudgingly do whatever your manager tells you to do. Sometimes you bang your head on the desk, and then you go home and you get ready to do it again.
So I know for me, and other people may be similar, because I've heard it. I was the kind of kid, I was the student that when I was assigned to work on a group project, inwardly I would just groan, because group projects usually ended up me doing all the work. But you know, when you get into industry, you have to work with a team. So what percentage of your work is group project? What percentage of yours is individually focused? Is it difficult? I mean, do you? I guess not difficult, but you know, is it? How hard is it for students that come in who are not used to working in a team environment? Is that something that they learn on the job, or is that something that ULA looks for? Like, guys, you have to have this figured out before you walk in the door.
Yeah, sure. I gotta say, 99% of my job is a team effort. There's almost nothing that I do that doesn't require some input from somebody else and an output to somebody else. Having said that, you know, I don't. I was in the same boat as you, Kurt. I did those team projects, and you get into that team meeting 2 weeks before it's due and realize nobody else has done anything. And the pride that I have in my work says, well, okay, I guess I'll do it. You know, I'll finish whatever I need to do. So coming in with that mentality of sort of being useful, doing what you have to do to get the job done, you absolutely have to have that. No questions asked. If you can show that in an interview, or any sort of interaction with a future employer, that's going to look really, really good. Once you get into the job, it's not so much about learning how to work with a team, it's learning how to work with the different personalities on the team. So you're going to have to learn how to work with folks that are you know, so introverted as to not know even what a team is or how to handle that interaction. Likewise, you're going to have to learn how to work with folks that are the complete opposite end of the spectrum, or extroverts. They want to be involved in everything. I I think it just comes with actually being in that environment. College, certainly you can get a little taste of that, but it's not going to happen until you're in the career, until you're in the job.
So what's on the horizon that excites you? I mean, just as a, and I use this term nicely because I think all of us probably would use this for ourselves, a space nerd. Because, obviously you don't do this just because it's your job. I mean, if it didn't interest you, you would probably find some other engineering field to go into. So you have to have a passion for this, I would think. So what as a space nerd excites you about the future?
Yeah, so it actually has almost nothing to do with what I do in my day-to-day job. But one of the things that I really want to see, let me step back for a minute. Carl Sagan, I was very much inspired by his work, the Cosmos series, his books, things like that. Pale Blue Dot. When I was old enough to understand and recognize how important that image was, it blew my mind. It changed my perspective on the world. So as far as things that I want to see happen, and Rochelle, I'm looking at you to make this happen. A direct image of an exoplanet, and I'm not talking about just a little blip of light that may or may not be a planet kind of thing. I'm talking that pale blue dot or pale green dot or pale purple dot, whatever it is, of another world. I think that would just blow wide open the excitement that people have, and certainly myself has, for continuing to explore space. I'm hoping it happens sooner than later, but I'll wait.
You gave me goosebumps when you said that. You really did. That would be amazing.
So we've had a question on Twitter. Ryan would like to know, what is an internship at ULA like?
Wow. So I've never actually had an internship. I've always been at the other end of giving the work off to the interns. So I'll speak to that experience. The interns that I've been able to work with, what I try to do and what my group tries to do is give them a lot of different jobs within whatever field that they're in. And I should mention that we get interns across the spectrum, from sort of the business and the finance side all the way through to the engineering side. So we try to give the interns a lot of different projects, a lot of different exposure and experience in different areas, so that they can get just a little nibble, a little taste in their 3 months of a lot of different things that we do at ULA. So if you want to be an intern, by the way, I'll make a plug. Just go on ulalaunch.com, check out I think it's under careers now. I don't remember exactly when the intern starts up, but check it out and keep your eye on it. So if you want to be an intern, just get ready to learn. Get ready to take that fire hose of knowledge and be willing to just take on everything. If an engineer says, hey, why don't you come up to the shop with me and go watch me do X task, do it. You're going to gain incredible perspective on a lot of different things.
Awesome. And the internships are summer internships, correct? So normally coinciding with the universities and colleges' summer semester?
That's right.
Okay. Jerome, I believe you had a question for Ian?
Well, I was just wondering if, Ian, if you had an opportunity to actually witness some launches up close, and if so, what do you take away from those experiences?
Well, I've never lit the fuse on the rocket, so that's I've never been that close. But no, the funny thing is, I've actually, in the 9 years that I've worked at ULA, I've only seen one launch with my own eyes, like not through a video screen or whatever. And that was the GPS launch that we did in January. I've done 24 or so launches in our Denver Operations Center, which is kind of our mission control for launches. So yeah, that's I've I'll say that the one launch that I did see and experience firsthand was awesome. I mean, just you know, the bright light of the RD-180 going up, the you could feel the heat wave, you could hear the sound just rush over you. It's awesome, and I've got to go see a solids mission because I hear those are even more impressive.
What about in the past? Is there a launch that you would have loved to have seen?
Yeah, I actually would have loved to see the EFT-1 mission. I think that would have been really cool.
Yeah. I thought you'd say that.
I will say that I am trying in my own way to make sure that I'm at the Cape for the very first crewed mission that we do. I want to be there. We'll see if that works.
I hear that. That would be fun too.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a zoo for sure. Everyone's going to want to see that.
Imagine hotels will be...
year in advance, easy.
Yeah.
So, Ian, talking about that you've only seen one launch with your eyeballs and everything else has been either on display or on console. Did you find yourself, when you were watching that GPS launch, wondering what was going on console, the stuff they were seeing, or were you enjoying the moment of focusing on the launch itself?
Yeah, I'm an engineer. I was absolutely standing on that balcony at the ASOC, wondering, okay, what's the thrust valve doing? What's the mixture ratio control valve doing? All that kind of other stuff. But I enjoyed it. I mean, it was still, again, it was that Type 2. When I got back to console and I did my normal job and I closed out for the day, I remember driving back to my hotel and just thinking, gosh, that was awesome. So, yeah, I guess I did both.
Of course, I wouldn't know because I've yet to see a launch yet. I've got to rectify that.
Ian,
Yes.
what's your favorite launch vehicle? If I could jump in with a question, I mean, you got to have. Is it the quick leap of the Atlas? Is it the big Delta IV Heavy, rocketing or rocketing up into the sky like a building, with a fire beneath it? Which one is really gets you excited?
I'm very biased, but my current favorite is the Atlas V. Love that vehicle. Just love it. If we can go historically, the Saturn series, the 1B and the 5 are just phenomenal.
So are there any other topics that we didn't cover tonight, any questions that we didn't ask that you want to make sure to get out there?
The one thing that we didn't touch on is a question I get occasionally about, what does a person that has this passion in space that just, it maybe is too far along in their career, they can't make a change, they don't want to make a change, they like what they're doing, but they still want to get involved in space and the industry and whatnot. I want to give the advice of doing like what you guys do, get involved in the social media sphere and bone up on your knowledge of current events in space and start tweeting about them and tweeting your opinions about them and things like that and seeing, kind of getting involved in that conversation. The other big thing is looking at school STEM events that you can volunteer at. The best thing that any of us can do, really, beyond our own sort of personal gain, if you will, is trying to inspire the next generation. And the really easy way to do that is helping out at a model rocketry event or even like a computer programming event, or there's the robotics clubs now that have popped up. You just volunteer that. You don't necessarily feel like you have to directly, you yourself have to directly excite and inspire a kid, but just by being there and helping out and making sure that the event goes smoothly, it will do wonders. It will give these children just amazing memories of that experience, and hopefully, in that little way, you have helped inspire the next generation of rocket scientists, rocket accountants, rocket business managers, engineers, and yeah. So don't think you're helpless, I guess, is the thing. Don't think that you just have to sit back and read everybody else's tweets. Go out there and volunteer and share your passion, share your excitement.
Great. Ian, thank you so much for being with us tonight, and I would like to thank United Launch Alliance for allowing you to be on tonight. So this is great. I think I know I've learned a lot, and I hope our viewers have too. So this has been great. And Rochelle, I believe that you want to close out the show tonight, correct?
I do. There's a couple of things I want to say. First of all, happy birthday to Carolina Garza. Her
Thank
birthday
you.
was yesterday.
Happy birthday.
Yay! Should we all sing? No? Yes?
Thank you, guys.
And then I have another birthday for today. It's my friend James Ridgers, who works at Blizzard, who's been on the show before, and today is his birthday. I think he's, 50, 51 maybe. Just kidding. He's going to kill me. So I did want to say that. So we've got the birthday kids here. And also, and I'm going to try not to get choked up, but today is Kurt's last show.
It is.
And we are going to miss him a lot.
And I've had a great time doing this. This is awesome, and I think this is probably one of the most interesting things I've done with spaceflight, being involved with this. It has opened up a lot of doors for me. I've been able to talk to a lot of different people, and most importantly, I've made a lot of new friends, and primarily you guys here on the panel. And I do appreciate you spending your time with me and allowing me to spend my time with you, and for our viewers who stayed with us through our thin shows and through our thick ones. So I really do appreciate it, and I will miss you.
Oh, we're going to miss you too, Kurt, and thank you for being on the show and helping start the show. And you're irreplaceable, and we are going to miss you.
Well, thank you. So, would you like to close out with your normal?
Yes. Oh, and tonight we have a SpaceX rocket launch at 12:45 Eastern, 9:45 Pacific. So make sure I know that I'm going to live tweet it. Alec, are you going to live tweet it?
Yes, I will be live tweeting this launch.
Okay. All right. Cool. I don't know if anybody else on the panel is going to be. So make sure to join us for that. And as always, and Kurt, again, and go out, look up, and discover. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night.
Night.